Black woman pays for a Hells Angels gas. The next day, dozens of bikers show up at her door. The thunder rolled across the Nevada desert like a warning. But Celeste Washington barely noticed it through the cracked window of the Texaco station. Her fingers trembled as she counted the crumpled bills in her wallet for the third time. $47 and some change. That was it. Everything she had left until her disability check came through next week. The fluorescent lights above her hummed with that particular frequency that made her migraine worse. And she pressed her palm against her temple, trying to push back the pain that had been her constant companion since the accident 2 years ago. She'd been a nurse, then head trauma unit at Desert Springs Medical Center before. A drunk driver had stolen everything from her in one violent collision. Now, here she stood at 2 in the morning, having driven 40 miles to the only 24-hour station she knew would take her expired credit card for the prescription painkillers she desperately needed. But the pharmacy had been closed. Another wasted trip. Another gallon of gas she couldn't afford to waste. The bell above the door chimed violently as it burst open, and Celeste instinctively stepped back. A massive figure filled the doorway, 6'4" at least. Shoulders like a linebacker, wearing a leather vest that bore the unmistakable Death's Head logo of the Hells Angels. His gray beard was streaked with road dust, and his eyes, blue and desperate, scanned the small store before landing on the terrified teenager behind the counter. "I need gas," the biker growled, his voice like gravel in a cement mixer. Tanks bone dry. Bike died right out front. The kid, his namatag read Jeremy, visibly shrank behind the register. You got money." The biker's jaw clenched. He reached into his vest, then his jeans, padding pockets with increasing frustration. His massive hands came up empty. "Christ," he muttered, then louder. "My wallet, it must have fallen out somewhere on Highway 95. Look, kid, I'm good for it. I'll come back tomorrow." "No credit," Jeremy squeaked, his Adam's apple bobbing. "Manager's rules." "I'm sorry, I can't. I'm not asking for credit." The biker's voice dropped dangerously low. "I'm asking for 5 gallons to get me home. I got a sick kid waiting for me. My daughter, He stopped, his massive frame seeming to deflate slightly. "She's in the hospital, Las Vegas, Canada. I've been riding all night from California." Celeste watched the exchange, her nurse's instincts reading the subtle signs, the exhaustion in his shoulders, the way his hand shook just slightly, the desperation barely contained behind that tough exterior. She recognized that particular brand of fear that only comes when someone you love is suffering and you're powerless to help. "Please," the biker said, and the words seemed to physically pain him. "I wouldn't ask if it wasn't. I said no." Jeremy's voice cracked with panic. "You need to leave or I'm calling the cops." The biker's face darkened, and for a moment, Celeste thought violence might erupt. But instead, he just stood there, this mountain of a man, looking utterly defeated. He turned toward the door, his heavy boots echoing in the small space. "Wait," Celeste heard herself say. Both men turned to look at her. She stepped forward, her own worn sneakers squeaking on the linoleum. Up close, she could see the biker more clearly, the bags under his eyes, the hospital bracelet partially hidden under his leather cuff, the photo tucked into his vest pocket, of a young girl with his same ice blue eyes. "How much do you need?" she asked quietly. The biker studied her, confusion replacing desperation. "Lady, you don't." "How much?" she repeated, already knowing. She was about to do something that would leave her choosing between food and electricity this week. Double quotes. 20. Maybe 25 to be safe, he said slowly, as if he couldn't quite believe what was happening. Celeste pulled out $30, her hand only shaking slightly as she placed it on the counter. "Pump 3, she told Jeremy. "Put 30 on pump 3. Jeremy looked between them, bewildered, but took the money and activated the pump. The biker stared at Celeste like she'd just spoken in tongues. "Why?" he asked simply. Celeste met his gaze steadily. "Because I've been where you are. Having someone you love in the hospital. Feeling helpless. The only difference is, when I was rushing to my husband's bedside after his heart attack, I had enough gas in my tank." Something shifted in the biker's expression. He extended a calloused hand. "Name's Magnus. Magnus Thor Eriksson." "Celeste Washington," she replied, her small hand disappearing in his grip. "Your husband," Magnus started carefully. "Is he?" "He passed 14 months ago," Celeste said quietly. "The medical bills took everything. House, savings, my health, insurance. That drunk driver who hit me 6 months later. That was just the universe's way of making sure I stayed down." Magnus was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled out a small notebook from his back pocket, scribbled something, and tore out the page. "This is my number. You need anything and, I mean anything, you call." Celeste took the paper, but shook her head. "I didn't do it for I know," Magnus interrupted. "That's exactly why I'm giving it to you." He paused at the door. "Your husband was lucky to have you racing to him that night. Is your daughter going to be okay?" Celeste called after him. Magnus's shoulders tensed. "Leukemia, third relapse, the doctors. They're not saying much." His voice caught slightly. "But she's a fighter. Gets it from her mom." He glanced back. "Got it from her mom. Cancer took her 2 years ago." Before Celeste could respond, he was gone, the roar of his Harley splitting the desert night as he tore off toward Las Vegas. She stood there in the fluorescent glare, $30 poorer, and somehow feeling richer for it. Jeremy whistled low. "Lady, you know who that was? That's Thor from the Serpent's chapter. Those guys are serious business. You're either the bravest or craziest person I've ever met." Celeste just gathered her purse, exhaustion settling into her bones. "Sometimes they're the same thing," she murmured, heading back out into the night. The drive home was quiet, except for the mounting anxiety about making it through the week with $17. Her small apartment in North Las Vegas, a far cry from the suburban home she'd shared with James, greeted her with its familiar problems. The dripping faucet she couldn't afford to fix, the AC unit that wheezed more than it cooled, the stack of overdue bills that seemed to multiply when she wasn't looking. She fell into bed as the sun was rising, her migraine finally receding to a dull ache. Tomorrow, she told herself, she'd figure out tomorrow. She'd learn to live hour by hour, day by day. It was the only way to survive when life kept hitting you with haymakers. The pounding started at exactly 10:47 a.m. Celeste jolted awake, her heart racing. The pounding came again, not knocking, but something heavier, more insistent. She grabbed the baseball bat James had always kept beside the bed, a habit she'd maintained even after he was gone. Creeping to the window, she carefully pulled back the curtain and nearly dropped the bat. The street was full of motorcycles. Not just a few, dozens upon dozens of Harley-Davidsons lined both sides of the street, chrome gleaming in the desert sun. Men and women in leather vests stood beside them, all bearing the same Hells Angels patches. Her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Chen, was peering through her blinds across the way, probably already dialing 911. The pounding came again. Celeste's mouth went dry as she approached the door, looking through the peephole. Magnus stood there, but he wasn't alone. Beside him was a woman, tall and fierce-looking, with intricate tattoos covering her arms and a president patch on her vest. With shaking fingers, Celeste unlatched the door and opened it a crack. "Magnus." "What's morning, Celeste?" he said, his voice softer than the night before. "This is Valkyrie, our chapter president. We need to talk to you. If this is about the money, I told you. I didn't want." "It's not about the money," Valkyrie interrupted, her voice carrying the kind of authority that came from being obeyed without question. "May we come in?" Celeste's mind raced. Everything she'd ever heard about the Hells Angels ward with the exhausted father she'd helped just hours ago. Finally, she stepped back, opening the door wider. Magnus and Valkyrie entered, their presence making her small living room feel even smaller. Valkyrie's sharp eyes took in everything, the medical equipment in the corner from Celeste's ongoing treatment, the photographs of better times, the stack of bills marked final notice on the coffee table. "Thor told us what you did," Valkyrie said without preamble. "Told us about your situation too. I didn't tell him, so you all would. We know." Valkyrie cut her off again, but not unkindly. "That's what makes this necessary. You see, Celeste, we have rules, codes. When someone helps one of ours, especially when they can't afford to, we take notice." Magnus pulled out his phone, showing her a photo. It was the same girl from his vest pocket, but in a hospital bed, pale and thin but smiling. "This is Emma, my daughter. Because of you, I made it to her last night. The doctors had called a code blue. If I'd been even 10 minutes later." His voice broke slightly. "She pulled through," Valkyrie continued when Magnus couldn't. "She's stable now, asking for her dad every few minutes just to make sure he's still there." Celeste felt tears prick her eyes. "I'm glad she's okay. The thing is," Valkyrie said, moving to the window and gesturing outside, "every one of those bikers out there has a story. Someone they almost lost. Someone they couldn't get to in time. Someone who judged them by their patches instead of their hearts. What you did it matters." "I don't understand," Celeste said weakly. Magnus stood up. towering over her, but somehow not threatening. "We take care of our own, Celeste. And after last night, you're one of ours." Before she could protest, the apartment was suddenly full of bikers. They moved with surprising efficiency and coordination. Two men began fixing the dripping faucet, while a woman with a tool belt started working on the AC unit. Others carried in boxes groceries, household supplies, things Celeste hadn't been able to afford in months. "No, please, this is too much," Celeste protested, overwhelmed. A younger biker with kind eyes and arms covered in military tattoos approached her. "Ma'am, I'm Tommy. I'm a veteran. Saw your husband's flag case. Marines, Army," Celeste managed. "101st Airborne." Tommy nodded respectfully. "My brother was 101st. Lost him in Kandahar. Your husband served overseas. 3 tours in Iraq," she said softly. "He came home whole in body, but the war never really left him. The heart attack, the doctor said stress was a major factor." Tommy squeezed her shoulder gently. "Then we're definitely taking care of you. It's what we do for family." The activity continued around her, like a well-orchestrated dance. Someone was on the phone with the utility company, negotiating her overdue bills. Another biker, a woman, who introduced herself as a paralegal, was reviewing her medical bills, marking things with a highlighter, and muttering about predatory practices and legal violations. Valkyrie appeared at her elbow with a cup of coffee, real coffee, not the instant stuff Celeste had been drinking. "Thor told us you were a nurse before the accident." Celeste nodded, accepting the mug gratefully. "Head trauma unit. Loved every minute of it until ... until some drunk bastard took it away," Valkyrie finished. "I get it. Before I was club president, I was a surgeon. Lost my license after I broke a patient's father's jaw when he came in drunk, and took a swing at his kid, who I'd just spent 6 hours putting back together." "You were a surgeon?" Celeste couldn't hide her surprise. Valkyrie smiled, the expression transforming her face. "Dr. Patricia Kellerman. Once upon a time, now I'm Valkyrie, and I've never been happier. The club gave me purpose when the system threw me away." Magnus returned, kneeling beside Celeste's chair. "There's something else. Emma's treatment, it's experimental. Insurance won't cover it. We've been raising money," but he pulled out an envelope, thick with cash. The club voted. Unanimous. "This is yours." Celeste shook her head violently. "No, absolutely not. That's for your daughter. Emma's treatment is paid for," Magnus said gently. "The club made sure of it this morning. This is different. This is what we collected for you. Because that $30 you gave me, you couldn't spare it, but you gave it anyway. That means something to us." $20,000, Valkyrie said simply. "Enough to catch up on everything and get you through the next few months while we help you get back on your feet." Celeste's vision blurred with tears. "I can't. This is ... This is what family does," Magnus said firmly. "And there's more. My sister runs a private clinic in Henderson. They need an experienced trauma nurse. The hours are flexible. The pay is good, and they'll work around your treatment schedule." The room spun slightly. Celeste set down the coffee before she dropped it. "Why?" she whispered. An older biker with salt and pepper hair spoke up from where he was fixing her kitchen cabinet. "Because 40 years ago, I was broken down on the side of the road with my pregnant wife. Middle of winter in Montana. Everyone passed us by except one person, a young black woman driving a beat-up Ford. She didn't have much, but she gave us her last $20 for gas and followed us to the hospital to make sure we made it safe. My daughter was born that night. That woman disappeared before I could thank her properly. But I swore if I ever got the chance to pay it forward, I would." "We all have stories like that," Valkyrie added. "People who saw past the leather and the patches to the human underneath. It's rare, Celeste. Rarer than it should be." Tommy emerged from her bedroom, carrying the stack of medical bills. "These are being handled. My wife's a patient advocate. She's already on the phone with the hospital. You're going to be amazed how much of this was illegally charged." Celeste stood up shakily, looking around at the organized chaos of kindness happening in her small apartment. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll come to Emma's birthday party next month," Magnus said with a small smile. "She wants to meet the angel who helped her daddy get to her." "Angel?" Celeste laughed through her tears. "I think you've got that backwards, considering who's wearing the wings here." The apartment transformation continued for 3 more hours. By the time the bikers prepared to leave, Celeste's apartment looked like a different place. The AC hummed smoothly, the faucet no longer dripped, the refrigerator was full. and a sense of hope foreign after so many months of despair had taken root in her chest. As the bikers filed out, each one stopped to shake her hand or give her a gentle hug. The paralegal left her card with a promise to raise hell with the insurance companies. Tommy's wife had somehow gotten 3 months of medical bills dismissed as improperly coded. The clinic job was hers if she wanted it, starting whenever she felt ready. Magnus was the last to leave. He handed her a leather jacket, not a vest, but a beautiful riding jacket with protective padding and intricate embroidery. "I can't ride," Celeste said, running her fingers over the soft leather. "You can learn," Magnus replied. "Emma wants to teach you. She's already planning it." Valkyrie appeared one more time, pressing a small pin into Celeste's hand. It wasn't a Hell's Angels patch, but something else, a pair of wings wrapped around a heart. "Honorary family," Valkyrie explained. "You wear this, any angel anywhere will help you. That's a lifetime promise." As the motorcycles roared to life outside, Mrs. Chen ventured out, eyes wide. "Celeste, dear, are you all right? Should I call the police?" Celeste smiled, really smiled, for the first time in over a year. "No, Mrs. Chen, everything's perfect. Those were just ... family. Family I didn't know I had." The thunder of dozens of Harley-Davidsons filled the air as the angels departed, leaving behind a woman transformed not by the money or the repairs, but by the reminder that kindness, even the smallest gesture, creates ripples that can become waves. That night, Celeste sat in her repaired apartment, holding the envelope Magnus had left. Inside, along with the money, was a note in rough handwriting. "Celeste, that $30 wasn't about gas. It was about faith. Faith in humanity. When the world gives you every reason not to have it. You gave me faith when I had none left. Emma's alive because you reminded me that angels don't always have wings. Sometimes they're tired nurses with $17 to their name who still choose to help. Welcome to the family." 2 months later, Celeste stood in the employee entrance of Desert Wind's medical clinic, wearing her scrubs for the first time in 2 years. The pin Valkyrie had given her was attached to her badge lanyard. A small reminder of the night everything changed. Her phone buzzed with a text from Magnus. "Emma's in remission. Doctors are calling it miraculous. She wants to know if you're still coming to her party Saturday. She's been practicing writing techniques to teach you." Celeste typed back, "Wouldn't miss it for the world." As she walked into the clinic to start her new life, she thought about that night at the gas station. Black woman pays for a Hell's Angels gas. The next day, dozens of bikers show up at her door. Sounded like a headline, something sensational and clickful. But the truth was both simpler and more profound. Sometimes grace appears in leather and chrome. Sometimes angels ride Harleys. And sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change not just one life, but dozens. The head nurse greeted her warmly. "You must be Celeste. Magnus's sister told us all about you. That was an incredible thing you did." "It was just $30 worth of gas," Celeste said, the response becoming automatic. "No," the nurse replied firmly. "It was faith. And faith, Ms. Washington, is priceless." As Celeste began her first shift, she could hear the distant rumble of a motorcycle passing by. She smiled, knowing that somewhere out there, a little girl named Emma was planning her first motorcycle lesson for a woman who'd shown her father kindness on the worst night of his life. The circle of compassion, once started, never really ends. It just keeps rolling forward, like wheels on an endless highway, carrying hope from one soul to the next. And in a small apartment in North Las Vegas, bills paid and refrigerator full, a woman who'd lost everything discovered that sometimes, when you give your last dollar to a stranger, the universe conspires to give you back something worth far more than money. It gives you back your faith in humanity. 6 months later, at Emma's birthday party, Celeste sat on the back of Magnus's Harley, her new leather jacket gleaming in the sun. Emma, healthier now with color in her cheeks, stood beside them giving animated instructions about balance and trust. "The key," Emma said seriously, her 12-year-old wisdom shining through, "is to lean into the curves, not away from them, even when you're scared." Celeste nodded, understanding the metaphor perfectly. She'd been leaning away from life's curves for so long, trying to protect herself from more pain. But that night at the gas station, she'd leaned in. And everything had changed, as Magnus started the engine, and Celeste wrapped her arms around his waist. She saw Valkyrie watching from the porch, that same transformative smile on her face. The other angels were scattered around the yard, this rough and tumble family that had claimed her as their own. "Ready?" Magnus called over the engine. "Ready," Celeste replied, And for the first time in years, she meant it. They rolled forward, Emma cheering beside them on her bicycle, and Celeste thought about the headline one more time. Black woman pays for a Hells Angels gas. The next day, dozens of bikers show up at her door. But the real story, the story of human connection, of kindness, transcending stereotypes, a family found in the most unexpected places. That story was written, not in headlines but in the heart. And as the desert wind whipped through her hair, and the motorcycle carried her forward into a new life, Celeste Washington knew that $30 had bought her something invaluable. Proof that even in our darkest moments, when we choose compassion over fear, love over judgment, the world has a way of loving us back tenfold. The engine roared, Emma laughed, and somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled across the Nevada desert, not as a warning this time, but as a promise of storms weathered and roads yet to be traveled, with family by your side.